you know, things like that, if you know what I mean.
Interesting.
Or we could do something else. There are like 500 topics in here. So.
I think that was pretty good. Yeah. So differentiating like what constitutes as a problem versus like not a problem, from what I understand.
Yeah. And like, I think that's really big for nowadays too. Because like, so many times you see, yeah, especially like now. So people talk about like the silent majority with things. And there it's so often, you and I try to do this is like, well, like try to stay silent about things that we see going on at times if we disagree with them, just because we don't want to cause conflict. But especially now, it's gotten to the point where like staying silent about things on like any side of, I guess, like if you want to make a political, any side of the political aisle, or just in general, can really cause issues or harm somebody. And so like that's what the whole Black Lives Matter push has been, is like getting people to speak out about injustices and stuff. And it's like because people are realizing like if you're silent, then people get hurt. Whether or not you support Black Lives Matter, it doesn't matter. Just like in general in life, there's so many things that go down in life. There are genocides that happen, and people stay silent about them because they don't want to cause issues. And so I think that's an interesting topic.
That's really interesting. Yeah. So like ties into what we talked about last week too. No, not last. We talked about I think Tuesday. Yeah, Tuesday. Because we were talking about cancel culture and stuff, and like, yeah, but we never touched on like why like rape victims or like sexual assault victims like never speak out.
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting. Yeah. Yeah, we can do
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I think it's just kind of weird because I think once you get into the realm of like forcing people to talk about things, or like forcing people to like stand up for things, um, there's like no end to that, because there's are an endless amount of injustices in life. There are always going to be. You're never going to actually solve all of them. And so if we're like forcing people to, you should be condemning this on social media, and we like you know guilt everyone into doing it, like where does that stop? Because then you're going to spend 24/7 on social media condemning all the injustices on the world, because again, there are always going to be so many. You just get into an endless loop of like condemning literally everything. Like for an individual, that's going to put you in a really bad place, just as just mentally, because you're just focusing everything negative at that point. And I
Let's do it.
think it's like, you can't really help anyone else unless you're in a good spot mentally. This is why, like, if you're like on a plane and it's going down, they always talk about, help yourself first and then help others. And I think the same is true with like relationships and almost anything in life. You've got to help
Obviously.
yourself first, make sure you're in a good place. And that's what I think is so funny, is like all these people that are guilting others into doing stuff when they themselves aren't even like in a mentally good spot.
Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's do it.
I,
Yeah, that was good. We can include that as part of the
I
episode.
honestly, yeah, I honestly
That's why
was
I
like
started. Yeah.
starting that because like I saw you recording. I was like, I'll just like use that. But
Yeah.
yeah,
So like, we're probably gonna do this like every time now, but I'm just gonna show you guys like our thought process on like coming up with these topics that we do every episode. If you guys like it, cool. If you don't, fuck you guys. Just kidding.
yeah. Sometimes it's kind of a struggle to come up with topics, but you know, try to like do things that we just like go through, especially like with all this COVID stuff though.
Yeah,
We just like sit and work
we're
all
like
day.
winging all this now. Like before, we
Yeah.
used to like write some talking points down for episodes, but now we just like we just wing it. Like we have, yeah, just wing
Mm.
it. So,
Wait, what was the topic I chose again? I forget.
oh my god, you were talking about how like why like what kind like
Oh yeah.
what should
Oh
people
yeah.
deem as problems, right? Like
Yeah. Like getting okay. So yeah. So okay. So I'm gonna
so what
like
should you
give
get
a
hyped up about and stuff.
yeah
Yeah.
yeah. I'll give like a really brief introduction as well. So it's like the thought process here with this topic of people need to get bigger problems. I think I saw a video. I think it was like Dean Graziosi or something, talking to somebody else. I don't remember who, but they were talking about like, if you want to be successful, you need to get bigger problems. If you're one of those people who, you're getting ultra pissed off about somebody who's like cutting you off in like while you're driving, so it like cuts you off, you're getting like super pissed off about that, and you're letting that ruin your whole day. it's like get bigger problems. But it is funny.
Well,
Obviously, that's not
well,
like a
I feel like for that
universal.
example though, like there's nothing wrong with getting mad, right? Like I think you need, I think it's expected you get mad if someone cuts you off, but like I think it's just being cognizant that like that's just like that's just an emotion you feel in the moment, but you're not actually like feeling that like all day. Like, because
Yeah.
I get pissed off people like all the time when I'm driving. There's so many stupid ass drivers, but like that's in the moment, and like by the time I get home, I just forget about everything. I literally don't
Yeah.
even care about what happens in the road. So just knowing like it's in the moment, like you can rage at someone in the moment, but you don't actually mean it like in the long term. So
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like, if you're like focused on it for like the whole day and it's like
you
actually like,
shouldn't be.
yeah.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
should
And it's like
not be. Yeah.
reducing the quality of your day. It's like, really get bigger problems. Like,
Yeah,
if these are
you can't
things,
even control that. You can't control factors like that, so you
yeah.
shouldn't get mad about them.
Yeah, exactly. But it's funny because I think Dean was talking about it, and he's like, this is like one of the big telltales that you're just an absolute loser. It's like if you're focusing on things that are just so ridiculously small in comparison to everything else happening in your life, and it's like you obviously don't have very big problems, so you're probably not doing much with your life. It's a really interesting, I don't know, way of thinking about it. But so that's why I would always talk about like, oh, it's just semantics when I would have a conversation with somebody. This kind of leads into like the big meat of what this topic is about. Is like, especially now we're really seeing how important words actually are. And so it's funny because I would always say like, oh, it's just semantics. And so like you shouldn't care too much because they're just words, and like as long as we're on the same page, like move forward. And I still mostly agree with that. But it is interesting to see, especially in like today's day and age, how big of a how big of a deal words are getting to be. Because like you say the wrong thing, and that really does become a problem because then you can get fired from your job, or like I guess even like jail time for like certain things, and like hate speech and stuff. And so like words really do matter now.
Yeah, that's stupid.
I
Pretty
think well,
dumb.
it gets into the whole like free speech argument, but that's a totally different topic. But yeah, I think it's just really interesting to see. Um, it's like
Well,
you
actually,
do want.
Here's a thought. Words themselves don't really have much power, but when you leverage words with some other kind of uh, intangible intangible meaning, like so, like if you have a person in power and they're like, and they tell you like, if you don't do this, like you're fucked. Like you're probably gonna be scared because they're like someone of power and you're like fucking a lowly like employer or something. And so
Peasant.
yeah, exactly. So you feel so like in that scenario, you feel like very threatened, and it's like it's hard not to do what they say after that because they have this leverage over you. But if you have like someone like an employee that's probably the same like that's the same um at the same level as you, like, and they tell you like, hey, if you don't do this, I'm gonna fuck your life. Like, I'm probably not gonna think much of it, like, because they don't have much power over you. Like, what are they gonna do about it? So I think like words themselves don't have much power, but when you put them with something else, like other things, like they definitely they just mean totally different things. And I
Mhm.
think like a lot of the Me Too stuff going on right now is like people in power, right? Like people in power, like using words to leverage and making girls do things like that they wouldn't otherwise do or something.
Yeah,
Thoughts
well,
on
like,
that?
have you seen so like is it like Jeffrey Epstein or whatever, the guy who like killed himself?
No,
So
no.
he had like his whole own island or something, and he was like sex trafficking like 14-year-olds or something. And apparently, like Prince Andrew of like England, I think, was like one of the guys. Apparently, I think, and so like they caught Jeffrey, and they put him in jail, and then he mysteriously committed suicide, even though it's like a really sketchy situation because apparently like the somebody, I think a Clinton went to go visit him or something, and then like guards fell asleep and the cameras didn't work while he hung himself or something. So there's no video footage of it. So there's a lot of
That
speculation
sounds
that he
so
was
shitty.
exactly.
Sounds
There's
like
a
they
lot of
let him kill himself.
speculation, yeah, that he was like murdered to like protect people. I don't know. But then so like I think it's his like girlfriend or something was just caught like a few days ago. And
Wait, caught
so
doing what?
well like arrested because she was in hiding because
Oh,
she contributed to a lot of this, and so that's also really interesting. But so it's like you do see um I don't know. A lot of these become really really big problems. I don't even remember how we got into that topic, frankly.
Well, because I was talking about how like words themselves don't have much meaning, but when you pair them with like something else, like someone in a position of authority or something, like then they hold a very significant meaning.
Hmm.
I don't know
Yeah,
what the hell. Like what he went on like
yeah. I
a
don't know. That
super
was a
like hard
completely
tangent.
weird
So
tangent.
that was.
Yeah.
Well, let's get back to topic, right? Like so, our topic was so like the meat of a topic is like how do you actually differentiate something you should care about, like something you should actually stay like argue about, like and be invested in versus like something you shouldn't give too much thought about, right? Like because I feel like for me, like when I'm at a party or when I'm meeting new people, like I never argue. I never argue at all. So like if they say something that I disagree with, I never argue. Like there's no point arguing. Like
Hmm.
there's really no point arguing with people because like and dude the funny thing is like most people if you argue with them, it just increases their it just makes them think more that their argument is even more correct. Even if you present them all the right evidence, like they will be even more convinced that their position is right. So I never argue with most people. Just it's so stupid. So I tend to just agree with everything they say because it helps like make a better first impression, right? Like because I think like it's always better to understand than argue, right? Understanding like why they think this is that, and then follow their logic, and then like it's like all about following them down their path and trying to divert their path to like something else. So they believe like all men are fucking sexist or some shit, right? Like you're gonna be like, okay, yeah. So why do you think that? And then you go down that that sort of train of thought with them, and then if you do want to argue with them, like you want to convince them that hey, all men are not sexist, but you follow their train of thoughts, and then you subtly try to divert them, and you like say like hey, well I know a guy and he's not a sexist, and they might like be like oh really, and like yeah. So I
It
think
is really
being
interesting.
understanding is like way better than arguing.
Yeah, it is interesting because like I think especially in the political realm nowadays, I think things are getting so polarized that it's hard to even have conversations, because they always do turn into arguments, which I think is pretty ridiculous. Because like the whole idea of having like free speech is to be able to actually have a conversation about ideas. And frankly, I'll never understand the whole idea of the safe space thing, where like you're protected from ideas that you disagree with. I will never understand that because you should be surrounded by ideas that you disagree with. That's the point of college. And so it's just like, it makes no sense to me why people
There's
do
a
that.
term for that. There's a term for that. Oh yeah. So basically, when you have a group of people that think the same thing and they talk about that same thing they agree with, they become even more convinced that their position is right, even though it
Hmm.
may be like wrong, like in the public's eye.
Yeah.
It's like groupthink or something. So like groupthink is very dangerous. So like when you have a lot of
Yeah.
people with the same ideas, like that's super dangerous,
Well,
especially
that's what
like
we
if it's
have
like really
nowadays.
radical. Like
Yeah.
Nazi camps, like you have a bunch of people like with the same radical ideology thinking the same thing, and it increases their belief that they are right. So it's
Yeah,
pretty dangerous.
exactly. Well, like that's what we're getting nowadays on like both extremes for like the right and the left and the political aisle. It's just like it's getting very extreme, and there's so much groupthink going on,
Really?
and people don't
Wow.
see others as individuals. It's like you're now a part of the group. It's like you're either white or you're black. It's like there's no in between. It's like your race and you're like rich or poor, and like that puts you on the victim scale, and then you have to like side with which level of victim you are, which is kind of ridiculous. And so it's like when you do get people who are like different backgrounds, so and they like speak out against certain things, it's just crazy to see them be attacked nowadays. You have like I don't know if there are really, since like the whole left promotes a lot of diversity stuff, I don't know if they have like anyone that's like this, but like there are like people on the right who are like, I don't know, Candace Owens or something, who's like a black conservative. And then
I have
people
no
like
idea who
that,
these people are. So
yeah, it's just like a random person. But like people like that get like torn to pieces because they're like a certain like you would think that they would belong to a certain ideology, but then they choose not to because they think differently than the group. And then they get just destroyed for it, which is crazy.
yeah, I think I think it's really dangerous lumping everyone into like one category.
I agree.
Because I think that's what's happening, right? Like you see a black person, you're like you instinctively think that like they're dangerous, right? Because you see all these headlines in the news about like all these black people committing robberies or fraud or like murders and
Honestly, so that's what's really funny is like people talk about all these implicit biases, and I'm like, as like personally,
they do
I can't.
exist, especially
Well,
with
well,
boomers
well. So I
especially.
think it depends. There are a lot of factors there, and I think blaming it 100% on racism that's a univariate analysis, which is
No,
always
that's
wrong.
not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that like a lot of people they see a person of a certain race and they lump them with all the stereotypes they know about them, especially the stuff they see themselves. Like you see in the news, like black people getting murdered, committing murders, all this bad stuff, and like I think a lot of people they form these implicit biases about them, and they're like, wow, okay, so next time I see a black person, like there's a good chance they're dangerous, you know, like
I think there are some, but I can't remember the last time that I looked at a black person and just because they were black, I immediately thought they were dangerous. Like I would be more scared of a white person who had tattoos, is super muscular, is wearing like a muscle
no, that's what I'm
t-shirt,
saying. I'm
who's
saying
like,
most people, but like for me and you, like we're pretty self aware. We're not like fucking. We're not
yeah.
like we don't really like we form our own opinions. So it's for us it's different, but for most people they think a certain way. So
Hmm. Yeah, it is interesting, but
hmm
you know.
so I feel like we should talk about um yeah. So why do you think people form these biases?
Um,
Well, I sort
well,
of said it.
I think it's statistics. I mean, honestly, the funny thing about these biases is that in most cases they're honestly logical. Like if you're in a room and I mean like if you're walking somewhere and 90% of let's say like most guys rape girls, then like girls are probably going to be a little bit scared of guys than they are of going to be of guys who are going to be of girls. I mean, like it's statistics, and so like that's the funny thing about a lot of these biases are like, yeah, it's judging the group, but it is like statistics. And so I don't know. It's kind of a weird thing. There's no right answer to it, but like a lot of these stereotypes happen because like certain groups of people will like do things en masse. It's like looking at culture. Like let's say that Americans hold birthday parties and no other country does. Then like you would expect if you see an American, you'd probably be like, oh, they probably hold birthday parties, and you see somebody else like, oh, they probably don't hold birthday parties. And it's like the same thing. And so it's like it's logical statistics. And obviously, again, I think so. My thought on it is this also. So implicit bias doesn't matter unless it actually becomes action, because it doesn't matter what you think in your head. You could think something terrible about anyone, and if you're not actually taking action on it, it makes no difference. So if we can prove that people are actually like taking action on those individual things, then okay. But like if you can't, if you're just gonna say that there's like some random implicit bias, but you have no proof of it actually forming an action, then I think that's kind of sketchy, you know?
You know, here's another thought. So actually, stereotypes are pretty good. Implicit biases are pretty good, but especially like for conversation, right? Like you talk to someone new, you meet someone new, like you meet like a fucking Italian, and you're like, oh shit, I know Italians have this certain stereotype, so I'm gonna bring that up in our conversation. So I think stereotypes are pretty good. Um, and sometimes, like especially conversations, meeting new people, but other times they can be harmful. So just
Well, I think
that was a
yeah.
tangent, but like I thought
Yeah.
that was pretty interesting. So
Well, like it's the same thing as like imagine. So we have stereotypes about literally everything. Like we have
yeah,
stereotypes about like let's say a bear. Like you hear about a bear attacking somebody, and so like you walking through the forest and you see a bear. Are you gonna be like, oh, the bear is harmless. It's okay. I'm gonna go up and pet it.
I'm
Like
running the
no,
fuck
you
away if I see a
yeah
bear,
yeah
bro.
exactly. And so like it's the same idea, and it's like obviously we can't judge whole groups, but it's like it is if I mean if there are like statistics to back it up, and I mean like people talk about like, oh, you shouldn't be scared of another person, and it's like, well, I mean, if people are scared of certain things, like I mean they're scared of those things. I don't know what you're going to do to like fix all of those things, unless like you're going to fix the problem that's causing these. It's like instead of trying to erase the stereotypes, maybe try fixing what's causing the stereotypes. It's like if you
Mhm.
so going on the bear example, like if you don't want people to be scared of bears anymore, then obviously this is unrealistic. But like work on getting bears to not attack random people, and it's like the same idea. Well, you can like
If we
condition
knew
them and
bear
stuff.
language, we could do that.
No, yeah, no, but I mean, it's easier with humans than it is with animals. But like the general idea there is just like, I don't think you can just erase stereotypes from things if those things are happening. Like if you over and over again do really poorly on tests, I'm gonna assume that you're not gonna do well in this test that I'm giving you. And that's not going to change by me just being like, he's going to do well on this test. He's going to do well on this test. He's going to do well on this test. It's going to change by you studying and actually changing it, improving yourself, and then doing well on the test to prove me wrong. Like, that's how we're going to fix a lot of these stereotypes, is fixing what's underlying. We can't be so surface level.
I think
And so like that, this actually really ties into like the
so. I
whole
think
getting bigger problems thing,
yeah, yeah,
is
so
because
I think
people, you
yeah.
good?
So I think for stereotypes, right? Like I think I think a lot of people. I think the best solution is just to have people like actually experience it themselves, because chances are like a stereotype and you talk to someone and they don't fit that stereotype, and I think that's much more powerful than someone telling you that's not true.
I agree.
Because like them telling you it's not true doesn't do much for you. But if you actually do meet someone, I meet a black dude that's super nice, super chill, and like and before like you thought that hey all black dudes are super violent, like you're gonna be like wow I don't think that, and so like that changes your mindset way more than someone telling you. So yeah, what are you
Yeah,
gonna say
but
about
I think like all of this really ties into the whole like get bigger problems thing, because it's like as at an individual scale, like we're all going to face small injustices on an individual scale. Obviously, if it's like on a major scale for a whole group, then there should be something done about it. But like it's the same idea of like if somebody's calling you names or telling you that you can't accomplish your dreams, like are you going to focus on it and be like, he said this? Like you should just like let it go and be like, you know what, okay, I'm going to use this as motivation. And like that's what you should do. And so it's like, get bigger problems and don't focus on so many things that are like super small. Like, use them as motivation if you need to, but try to get problems that are a lot larger instead of having the problem of, oh my gosh, all my friends are talking about me. Have the problem of, I don't know how I'm going to scale this business because we're getting so many customers right now. Like, have big problems that are super big and important to you. Not things that are just like, I can't be judged right now. It's like, I think you really have to level up the problems that you're having.
totally agree with that. Totally agree with that. Yeah, I think especially like I feel like in like middle school, like I think anything below like high school, we can all relate. Like I think me and you both in high school, we were both like pretty like we like I think a lot of people like below high school have like small problems, right? Like we care about how popular we are,
Mhm.
like how many how popular we are, like like what kind of friends you have. So
If you're
like, all
dating
these, yeah,
someone.
exactly. Especially dating. Dating is such a
Mhm.
like huge thing below high school. So like all these small problems and stuff. But like, yeah, I think once you just break yourself out of that loop, like it just feel much better.
I mean, I think it's super liberating, but like, it's, I think you really have to be like, what kind of problems do I want to be focusing on the rest of my life? Like, do I want these things to be super small that are just like, I'll look back in 10 years and be like, that
Yeah,
was
you
freaking
you gotta think
ridiculous.
like if you want to be a celebrity, you gotta think like celebrity. Sounds cheesy, but it's true, right? Like you can't be a celebrity, like and give a shit about what other people are thinking about you, because most
Hmm.
celebrities they don't give a shit. Like they do
Yeah.
not give a shit. They care about more their they care about their own career more than thoughts of others. So
Hmm. Well, I think, well, celebrities might be a slightly bad example, especially nowadays. Because I think everybody just gives into the mob nowadays to protect their fame. But I do think it's like, strive to be somebody who like creates massive change and is somebody who's like, you know, who's actually what you would want to be, somebody that you would look up to. And that person isn't going to be complaining that their parents didn't buy them a cheesecake, like
yeah,
you,
you buy yourself a cheesecake.
yeah, exactly. Well, it's just so funny because like I'll look back to when I was like a 5-year-old or something, or I don't know, like 9, and if we didn't get like an ice cream cone or something, it'd be like the end of the world. And I'm just, you look back at things like that, and you're like, if you get bigger problems, it's almost a sign of like maturity and growth. Because when we're young, everything's a big problem. We don't have our stuffed animal; it's like the end of the world.
I think
But
that's a
as we
good
get
thing. When
older,
you're young, everything's a big problem, and it's a good thing, right? Like we learn from all those
yeah.
experiences, like you know. So
hmm Yeah, but I think it's like it's such a sign of like maturity as you grow older to
it
be
is
like,
for
I'm
sure.
gonna get bigger problems. I think you can almost measure someone's maturity based on the kinds of problems that they have. If they're complaining about like other people all the time, probably not somebody who's super fun to be around, and they're probably gonna do it about you behind your back. Like that's the funny thing is like I've talked to so many people, especially like founders of like startups or something who are young and they just complain about like their teams and stuff. I'm like, you're never gonna have a great team if you're just complaining about them behind their back.
Yeah, should probably do something about it instead of complaining to
Yeah.
others. You know.
hmm Yeah, it's like get your problems and like learn how to deal with them, so then you can level up the
But
problems
like
again.
that's not to say there's nothing wrong with voicing frustrations, right? Like there's nothing wrong with being mad at your teammates, especially if they're actually like not doing shit,
Yeah,
you know? Like
yeah, but I
I've been
think you
in
have to have
groups
that
like
conversation with them, not with
yeah,
like random other people. Because if you're just like venting to other people. So this is actually a really good topic that like, so this happens in like relationships all the time. So I had this happen to me, but like the one girl I ever dated was like trashing me behind my back all the time, and it's like people
and she
do
still
this.
is, right?
Yeah, probably. No, but it's like people do this to others all the time, and I'll never understand why. And my biggest objection to that was like, if you can't have a conversation with me and actually try to fix this, then like, what is the point? Like, in the argument that I got back was like, girls need to vent or people need to vent. And it's like, no, you need to fix your problems. Like, you got to go talk to the person. How do you expect to ever solve a problem if you're just going to vent, which is going to make you more angry because you're focusing on it? Like, how are you ever going to solve the problem? And so it's like, I think you do need to get bigger problems. And I think you're going to do that by learning how to solve the problems that you have now.
True, yeah. Like a lot of like, this happens so much because people, especially in relationships, cannot talk. Especially in relationships, they make out a lot of these small problems bigger than they
hmm
actually are, right? Like talking to your um, significant other about some kind of argument you had or some kind of issue that you have like is it's actually not that hard, but like you make it so much harder than it has to be because like you think about all these what if scenarios. Like you're like,
Yeah.
oh, what if I do talk about this and he gets super mad at me and like he breaks up? So and I think maybe there's that aspect of I don't want to lose him, so I'm not going to confront him about this. So yeah, there's a lot of factors that contribute to making these small things like much bigger than they actually are. And
Yeah.
and I think the thing is like if you do, I think you always should talk about like be transparent about anything in a relationship. And if you do that and like your partner gets mad and like they want to like break things off, like fucking break things off. Like they are not who you want to be with. So
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, we beat this drum all the time. you know, there is such a thing as not being a good fit, and you've got to let that happen. I used to be the kind of person who was like, oh, we can fix anything. But, there gets to be a point where like, maybe you could fix it, but it just makes no sense to
it's
because
not
there's
worth the
just
effort.
like clearly not matching
Dude, oh my
personality
god,
types.
I have like the perfect example. Um, so it's like, so I think a lot of guys they have problems. They have a lot of problems like actually like judging, what the girl may be thinking at the time.
hmm
So like, here's an example. So like, I think, um, happens to every guy. Like you message a girl and like a girl you like, and you're like, hey, do you want to go out, grab dinner tomorrow? And like I think like the thing you have to think of is um like you gotta think like you know what is it like in their shoes? What if I am in their shoes? So like if you message a girl like, hey, you want to go out to dinner tomorrow night, and she says no, like straight up no, I'm busy. You should probably just stop texting her. Like it makes no sense to keep texting her
Yeah.
because she's not interested. She's clearly not interested. Because if you put yourself in their position, right? Like what would you say? Like what do you
Like
think?
me
Yeah,
individually.
so if someone messaged you and they're like, hey, you want to go out and eat dinner, and you're busy tomorrow, like what would you say?
I
Besides,
mean, it would
no,
really
I'm
depend.
like
If that's
someone asks you like you want to get dinner tomorrow, and then you're like, dude, I've messaged you about this too, right? So I'm like, dude, you want to like grab lunch tomorrow? And you're like, no, I'm busy. Is that all you say, or like
like, I mean, wait, I'm so confused.
okay, you're fucking stupid. You're so stupid. Okay, so
no.
okay, so like assume you're in their position, the girl's position, and like
I
basically
mean,
like
I
you.
would just say that I'm busy if I didn't want to do it. Well, wait, so no,
I would never say I'm
I
busy.
no, I think I
I
think
would
I see what
always,
you mean.
I would always say I'm busy. I'm busy tomorrow night, but I would give a counter offer. I'd be like,
Yeah,
but let's
yes.
like tomorrow afternoon or
Well,
day
that's
after
if
tomorrow.
you want to do it. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. If you
exactly.
actually want to,
If
yeah.
you are interested, you're always gonna present a counter offer. But I don't think a lot of guys get this. They they text girls and they just don't give any counter offer and they still keep texting. It just makes no sense. Like you
Hmm.
can literally tell um, at the onset that a girl's not interested if she doesn't present a counter offer.
Yeah,
And so
and it's so funny because people get super set on like one individual thing. Is people get set on like one individual company. I know you're kind of set on Google, but I'm always just like you.
no, I don't really care honestly. Any of the
Okay.
big fan companies work for me.
Yeah, yeah, but it's like
I'm
people
gonna
get so set on like individual things. My brother was like ultra set on Microsoft, and it's been great, but it's like not quite what he thought it was going to be. And so it's like there are so many times where you get super set on like I want to date this person, or I want to work at this company, or I want to do this explicit thing, and it's like over time you're like, well, fuck, that wasn't quite what I thought it was. And so it's like uh, there is such a thing as not being a right fit, and I think you've got to, like I will never chase somebody. Like this is just a reality that I've come to is I will never chase a girl, literally ever. And
wait,
I
what'd you
think
just
so
say?
many, I'll never chase a girl, like ever.
Chase a girl. I
Chase.
was like, okay.
Yeah, yeah. And I think more people need to be in that mindset because like I think you'll find better people that way because you're not forcing stuff. If you have to force it, I guarantee you it's probably not gonna work out.
There's nothing wrong with chasing girls. I think it just depends on how you do it. So like, I think so here's the thing. So I think the solution to most guys is just be honest. Just be like fucking like dead honest, like straight up in their face, right? Because I think a lot of I think a lot of guys they like they go around all these circles to like become closer to this girl they like, and then they end up just getting rejected. So I think just being honest is like the biggest thing you can do.
Yeah, and then you friend zone yourself. You do that anyway. Like I think you just literally just have to go for it. It's like go and have the conversation. Like it's not that difficult.
Yeah.
Because like, I think the lack of communication. We talked about this before, but like you dance around it, and then you try to be super nice, and you think that's gonna somehow make her attracted to you, and you just end up making yourself into be a really good friend, and like you never leave that.
Yeah. It's like, man, it's so hard to think. I'm trying to like think of a good example.
So this is gonna be like a dating podcast by the end of it.
I
Dating
know.
advice.
I think the title the title should be like so the first thing we talked about was having smaller problems, and then second thing we talked about was biases, and third thing we talked about was girls. So we need to find a way to combine all these three into like one title that's attractive.
Oh gosh, we'll see. We'll
Um,
see.
yeah, so I have an example. So I think super interesting. So like a lot of guys run into this problem where like they have like I so my take my take. I think for most guys, right? Like most guys have like girls on like a rank fuck list. I guarantee you, most guys are like this.
Oh my God, I'm
But
definitely
like,
not.
maybe not you, but most guys. But girls like they don't have guys on the same sort of like scale, and like rather like two groups, like guy friends and people that I go further with. And so from the guy's point of view, like he's getting closer and closer to a girl when he's like being more friendly and they're building a relationship. Like it's getting so good. Like he's almost there. He's almost there to the prize. You know what I'm saying? but
Gosh,
like
this is
but like
terrible.
I think I think like the biggest like the misconception here is like for the girl, she's like, wow, dude, that guy is like, he's such a good friend. Like, wow, like me and him are getting so much closer and closer. Like, I watch movies with him. He's such a cool friend. Like, we eat like all the time, and like, eventually the guy will spring the question, "Hey, you want to fuck, or do you want to be my
Oh my
girlfriend?"
God.
And she's just like, "What the fuck? This is way
Yeah.
different from what I thought it to be." And this is where all the shit that's happening today happens, right? Like, because and then both people end up feeling super fucked because like the girl's like, whoa, you fucking strung me this entire, or like the guy's like, whoa, you fucking just strung me this entire time, you heartless
Led
little
me
bitch.
on, yeah.
Yeah, you fucking let me on, bitch. And then the girl's like, you just lied about your intentions this entire time. Like you thought by being extra friendly with me, I was gonna fuck you. And so there's like this huge, so everyone's just fucked in the situation. So this is why I just say, like, you're a guy, like, just be honest. Like, I think the good thing about being honest is, like, when you present your intentions to a girl, like, it's pretty obvious, like, you know at the onset, like, whether she likes you or not, and whether to move on or not, because it's not worth spending your time with someone who does not like you, because, like,
Yeah.
yeah.
And like if you look at like so many people out there nowadays, I guarantee you, like if you're honest, I think the girl or a guy will find that a lot more refreshing than all of the people that are dancing around it. Like literally, it's like you just message this person and then like be like, I think you're really attractive. I would love to get to know you more and maybe date you in the future. Like if you don't want to, that's fine. But if you'd like to, we can see where this goes. And like just that, and then see what happens. And I think you will have a lot better response from just being honest, than wasting all your time like trying to get close and nice to somebody.
Yeah, so I think yeah,
Communication.
just being upfront about it, it's just so much better for most people. um Dude, I even told you about this. So Andrew had this crush on a girl,
Oh my
and
gosh.
oh my god, I literally told him
So
like
funny.
3 months before he like told her to just tell her that you like her and then like move on. And you wait like 3 months after to tell her, so like it's like,
And
dude,
ironically, once I did, it was
it
perfect
was
until the
exactly like,
revenge.
so the chances are she liked you 3 months ago, like,
Yeah.
so like,
Yeah,
yeah.
people need to go and do
Oh my
it.
god, so I think another thing is a lot of I think both genders have this misconception about looks too, right? So like like we can have certain opinions about, how people look when we look at their photos on Instagram, or when you're like fucking actually, I won't say that, that's pretty explicit, but like yeah, so let's just take Instagram. Like, so you can look at people's photos on Instagram, and like you can have certain opinions, but like in real life, most people don't give a shit about, like, most of that stuff. Like in real interactions, most people aren't as selective. So like you can like so chances are, if you think of someone you like really like and you think about them, like all you remember are their good qualities. You don't remember anything bad about them, right? Like if you aren't actively thinking about it, like you probably won't remember anything bad about them. And I think the thing is, like, yeah, so when we think about others, like, we think about all the good things about them. But when we go out ourselves, like, all we think about are our bad qualities. Like, oh my gosh, dude, I have this pimple on my face, on my nose or some shit. And yeah, I think people just need to be more confident in themselves, because
Hmm.
most people, they don't give a shit about, your small problems. They care about more, they care about you as a person more.
Yeah.
So
It's like Gary Vee said. He's like, dude, you're so worried about your zit and you think everyone else is going to care. He's like, nobody else cares. Everyone's worried about their own zit. They're not caring
yeah.
about yours. And so it's like, we all have our flaws and like everyone else is focusing on theirs. So like nobody's going to care about what you have. So you might as well not focus on it.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, for sure. Wow, what a tangent.
Yeah.
What a tangent.
Video. This
How did
is
we
an
even get
episode of
here, dude?
tangents.
Holy
I
shit.
don't know. We always seem to go back to like talking about like relationships or girls for some
Well, at
reason.
least, only like the
This is what
past
it's
few
like being a
episodes.
teenager, people.
It is the hormones locked up in our house. So
Yep.
um, we should probably, like, let's go back to our first topic, which is, um, so like, how do you know which problems you should care about and which problems you shouldn't care about, and let's wrap it up from there, I think.
Yeah. So I'll hit the first point. Like,
Because I think from our tangent, like, we talked a lot about, like, how we talked about, like, why we form these certain conceptions, these certain biases about certain problems. And I think from there we can understand, like, how we actually form these baseball problems. And now, like, I think the question is, how do we know, like, what do we care about? So
yeah, I think so. I talk about this with like branding and stuff too, but something that's helped me is like defining the kind of person that I want to be. Like I always go through this exercise of imagine you have a friend and they're talking about you to one of their friends. What do you want them to say? Like, how do you want to be
that's
represented?
good. That's
And
good.
so it's like, align yourself with that. obviously don't care too much what other people think, but try to represent, that kind of person that you want to be. I think like setting out who you want to be for your life is super, super helpful, because then you can just align all your values with that. And like everything you do every day, you just ask yourself, like, does this align with the person that I want to be? It's like Jordan Paris, he's a mutual friend of ours. He talks about, I think he's got like 3 things. I don't remember what they are off the top of my head, but he has like 3 things that he's like, it has to fit in one of these categories, or I'm not going to do it. And so it's just like he sticks to those, and I think that's super valuable.
Yeah, so yes, principles. Those are essentially just principles. So I think we
Mhm.
all need to have principles in our own lives that we follow, and I think those are good. Those are good, um, guides for our journey. I think
Yeah,
so.
because like so many people, it's really funny because I guarantee you, if you ask like 100 people, how many of them had like an image of what they wanted to be in the future, and like they had like written down these qualities that they wanted, you'd probably have like 1 or 2 people that had done it out of the total. And it's like
Like
I
I
really
used to
think,
say that like I'm gonna get in Harvard for sure. Not gonna get in Harvard because I
yeah,
didn't study in college. I mean, high school. I much so.
yeah, it's like I think but that's another big point is like there's such a big disconnect between who you want to be
Yes,
and
and
what
how
you're
much
actually
work you put
working.
in. Yes,
Yeah, it's
I
like
didn't. I didn't put in any work. If you want to go to Harvard, you got to put in a lot of work,
yeah,
especially. But I didn't
yeah,
put in the amount of work. It's like
and
what you
also it's
say
like
too.
don't.
Like it's like what you say. Like I think your the amount you work has to align with uh your the level of success you want to achieve in the future. I think that's
Mhm.
so good. It makes a
Yeah,
lot of
and
sense.
honestly, I think it's super valuable to be able to just roast yourself. Like if you look at your schedule and you're like, dude, I'm not doing what I need to be able to do. You need to have that conversation with yourself and be like, I need to be better, and do whatever you can do to like get back to the point that you need to be at. Because again, there's so many people that talk so big they just don't do shit. And it's like as long as you're grinding, we can't all do everything, but if you're just working towards it, like that's as much as you can do.
Yeah, I think building that momentum is super important.
Hmm. I
So like
agree.
yeah, it's just like when you start out, it's always gonna be hard. Like you're probably gonna get distracted a lot, but you just gotta like see the big picture
Hmm.
and just realize that like, hey, all the guys who've done this before me, like they all started out with pretty much exactly like me, and they built their tolerance up, they built their habits up, and they built their momentum up, and they got to where they are today. So I think it's just being aware. Like awareness is so important.
I agree.
I think that's why like what we do as a podcast is super important. Like we're spreading awareness to people. Like I think a lot of people, they know what to do, but they just I guess they second doubt themselves, and so I think
Hmm.
awareness is super important in all this.
Yeah, and so like that's why I think it's like once you find the message that you want to, it's like this podcast is just like the message that we want to put out to people. And it's like once you align yourself with that, and like you can, I think having this stuff air off of you when you walk into a room is super important. Because like I walk into a room, people know what I stand for because of like this podcast and the things that I preach. And so it's like I think you want to have, I mean, that kind of brand, but like that kind of impact too. Is you find what you want to stand for, and you find like what you want to rub off on people. I want my confidence to rub off on others, and I can't do that without being confident myself. And so it's like you've got to decide who you want to be and take steps towards doing that. And
Yeah,
i think
dude,
i think
I
it's
call that the vibe. The
yeah.
vibe.
Yeah, but it's like, and if the problems that you have in your daily life aren't the kind of problems of like the person that you want to be, level up your problems. It's like that, like I think that's so important, like level up your problems.
Definitely,
That's a good line.
definitely. Yeah, I think that's a wrap, guys. Super long episode today. Talked a lot of things. Hope you guys enjoyed. Yeah, just give us a review if you liked it, a sub if you loved it. Sub, yeah, sub on Apple. Only Apple Music has subs, I think.
I don't
Pretty
even
sure.
know how to. I don't
I
know.
don't know
I
how
haven't
these work.
looked.
I only use Apple Music anyways. But yeah, so also we have a YouTube channel. I mentioned this every single episode. We
Yep.
should probably
Look
do
at
this
our beautiful
we should do
faces.
this on in the beginning, I think. So
Probably.
yeah, we have a YouTube channel. Check us out. You can see us live in action and me eating food, of course, sometimes.
Yeah.
If you enjoy that
Me
kind of
drinking
thing.
Diet Coke. Usually, I don't have one today.
You don't
Sadly.
have one, wow. Okay.
Yeah, I didn't grab one yet.
Um, yeah, so just check us out on YouTube and all the major podcast platforms. And we will see you guys next time.
If you haven't
Bye
reached out to
bye.
us yet, do that.
also do that.
Yeah.
We will talk with you guys. So see ya. Oh, how do I stop?